All right. Hi there, and welcome to our breakout session this afternoon. We will be talking about how to deal with takeout waste during the pandemic. Obviously, lots of us have been doing our best to support local as much as possible, but what do you do when you're trying to support local and not make a big old mess? To do that today, we've got Alec McChesney with us, who is the creator of the technical difficulty. He's the creator of the emergency takeout group on Facebook. A few things before we get started. First of all, this webinar is being recorded, so if you have to duck out or pause at any time, feel free to head back to our website, las.com/fest, to find a replay later on. We are in, since this is a webinar, we are in listen and view mode only, but if you would like to send us a question, you can use the question and answer box that you can see there marked at the bottom of your screen. And then I have a nice little window pop up. So with that all said, I think that's all of our housekeeping. Alec, take it away.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, Kyle. I appreciate that introduction. And as Kyle mentioned, I'm here to talk a little bit about the takeout group, a little bit about waste, but I do want to be completely transparent with you guys right out of the gate and say that if you told me a year ago that in July of 2020, I'd be talking about reducing waste and sustainable living during a global pandemic, I wouldn't ever have believed you. And so I am just trying to learn as we kind of continue on in this process. And so I am no expert. I am coming at this from an angle of learning and trying to go that route. And so we can get started. Go ahead, Kyle. And as Kyle mentioned, it looks like we might be having some technical difficulties.
Yeah, just one moment. Sorry about that, Alec.
But as Kyle did mention, if everybody can still hear me, feel free to ask questions throughout the process and engage, whether they be about the reducing waste factor or the Lincoln delivery group as well. There we go. Little victories, that's what it's all about. And so today, what I want to talk about is just start with how that group started and really the impact that it's having in the community right now, and also answer the #1 question that I get most consistently with it, which is, where does it go from here? And so I do want to touch on that, but also we're gonna kind of tie in, as Kyle mentioned, the reducing our waste with just some interesting tidbits that I'm kind of learning about this process, and then also kind of highlight some small steps that we can all take that will really make a big difference over the long haul. And I'm kind of excited to talk about that, just again, because I am a beginner in this space, and I want to learn and maybe even engage with some of you guys on what you're doing on a day-to-day basis to live in a more sustainable way. Go ahead, Kyle. So I do love this story. I will tell you guys that it is just a few days after the pandemic began is when this group was started. It was actually a Sunday morning, probably before 6 a.m. And we were probably a week into your pandemic solutions, if you will, at Firespring, which is where I currently work as a business development strategist. And we were just trying to find ways for local businesses, nonprofits, small businesses to stay innovative and creative. And I was actually back in Iowa at the time where my girlfriend lives, and there was a familiar group, or a similar group, if you will, to the one that we eventually created. And I started it, and if you know anything about Firespring, you know that within minutes, the culture there, they just started sharing it like crazy. And I kid you not, within 24 hours of starting the group, We were up to a couple thousand people on the page, and now there's over 16,700 members and over 52,000 total posts and interactions, which just seems incredible, having it only been up since the middle of March. But just a testament to the Lincoln community, and it really ties into, as Kyle goes to the next slide here, of why the group exists. And it's because of that importance that we all feel, of supporting those local businesses. There were so many restaurants that I talked to in the beginning of this whole process that were fearful that they were going to have to shut down. And some did actually shut down, some have reopened, and others haven't. And so it's really important that we continue to do that throughout this entire time. But if you're anything like me, and even if you're not, you probably have felt a lot of separation from your community during this time. And it's something that I have not handled very well. I need human interaction. I love talking to people. It's one of my favorite parts about being alive and working at Firespring. And so I thought that this forum of kind of positivity and conversation would bode really well for people, just to be able to come on and share what they ate the night before and their experiences that they've had. But additionally, mental health is so important at all times. And I know I'm kind of going all over the spectrum here, but it's so important during this pandemic to really treat yourself, and occasionally go out and have that meal that you love, and maybe find the meal and the margarita, if you're over the age of 21, that you really want to enjoy. And so I think this group has actually been fantastic in that I have found more things to eat here in Lincoln that I ever thought existed. And I've only been here for 2 years now. And so it's been a real treat to see everybody come together and kind of stay in that positive light. And I will address the one thing about that group is that it has at times gotten negative, and our whole goal is to keep it really positive. And that kind of goes into the next slide of where the group goes from here. I have had a lot of people ask me if I was going to shut it down the moment the pandemic ended. I've had a lot of people ask me, why it's still up already, because we're kind of through the first wave, if you will. And my answer to that is that there's no reason to stop supporting local businesses, and there's no reason to stop having this forum of positivity and honestly fun once the pandemic does end. And no matter what way you look at it, if it's 3 months from now or if it's a year from now, when everything goes back to normal and everybody feels comfortable going out again, I think having a page with 16, 17,000, if not more people by that time, where local businesses, entrepreneurs, and restaurants can connect with the end audience, and the audience can talk to each other and say, hey, this is this new place I found, whether it be a restaurant or a place where you go and you throw axes or you go bowling or whatever it is. I want it to be a way where people can continue to engage and communicate, either on the consumer to consumer level, where it's just us talking with our community members, or from the businesses to the individual. And I think what I've heard from people say is that whether you have lived in Lincoln for 20 years, 50 years, or like myself, 2 years, you've been finding new places from that group. And ultimately, I think that's probably the most important piece of all of this, and really what I really enjoy about everything with it. And so that's kind of the group aspect of this, and we can transfer on to the next slide to address the waste portion. And again, as I mentioned in the beginning, this is something that it's a new topic to me. In fact, LES is really who brought it to my attention of, more takeout means a lot more waste, right? Whether that's in the paper, plastic, styrofoam capacity, there is going to be more. And something that I've learned over the last couple of days as I started to put this together was, obviously revenue has been dropping for a lot of restaurants and really all businesses during this time, especially those local businesses. And so they have to find ways to mitigate that revenue decrease. And so maybe it is taking a step back and using a plastic or using a styrofoam because that's what they need to do. And you're not having those consumers or the individuals coming in with their own water bottles to fill up because there's no dine-in. And so that is causing a little bit of a problem. And I wouldn't be shocked if this number increases. This was from 2019, that food waste accounts for roughly 45% of your household waste. And again, I would never have been able to guess that. I might have guessed too high, I might have guessed too low, but I wouldn't have been able to put a tangible number on that. But it's one of those things that when you start to think about it in that light, and you say, wow, okay, last week I picked up food from, one of the restaurants downtown, and I was given 10 napkins and two sets of utensils for one order, and I would have had no idea that was causing such a problem. And so the big question, which I think everyone might be a little disappointed to find that I'm not going to answer in a perfect way, is what can we do to mitigate the waste? And it's a difficult problem, and it's something that I looked up. I will tell you that I spent probably a little too much time researching this over the weekend because I really wanted to have a great answer and come in all confident. But there really isn't one end-all be-all solution. But at the end of the day, it comes down to each individual doing as much or as little as they are able. And I know that seems a little counterintuitive to use the word as little, but it's true. And at the end of the day, it comes down to the fact that you have to personalize this to yourself. And so, Kyle, if you would go to the next slide. This is kind of the plan, right? Is you have to personalize your impact. If you try to go today from 0 to 100, well, maybe for a week you can keep that up. Maybe that's sustainable, pun intended there. But it probably isn't for most individuals. What you have to do is try to go from 0 to 5 and then 5 to 12 and so on. And you'll get better throughout this entire process. But there are little things, whether it's increasing your recycling efforts at home or even the composting efforts if you are able or if you're not able. For instance, at my apartment complex, we don't have a recycling ability, but I can collect my recycling here and keep it in a separate bin and then take it to the city and do it there. That's one step. But that I understand is also a difficult thing to do. And so that's setting a goal up here. And maybe you have to set a goal such as reusing or using reusable bags at the grocery store, or even for lunch, if you're going to bring your lunch to work, whether that right now it might be at home, but as things return to normal and you go back to the office, not using a plastic bag, using a lunchbox, and even not using Ziploc bags, or using reusable sandwich bags or containers, things like that. Even as far as paper towels, using reusable rags, that is going to make a difference in just the individual impact that you're making on the environment every day. And it's one of those things that I will tell you, it sometimes feels like you're not making an impact. I went a year or about a year without eating red meat because I was trying this, to try to make an impact in a certain way. And throughout the entire time, I was like, is it really doing anything? But you really have to understand that every little piece that you make, every little difference that you make is going to add up. And that brings me to that second to last dot or bullet point there, which I love, which is when you call ahead and you order, just let restaurants know that you don't need those things, because realistically, if you don't let them know, they have to give it to you. Because if you got home and it wasn't there, then you could be upset, you could be angry, or if you were eating on the go, they're always going to include them in there. And for the most part, they're going to include maybe too much, right? They're going to include 6, 7, 10 napkins and a couple of things of silverware because that's what they have to do. But if you just pick up the phone, let them know that, hey, you're not going to need it, that's going to make a difference. It's also going to help them save money in the long run and make sure that the individuals who do need those items are also going to have them. But with all of that said, it's really about doing the best you can. Like I mentioned, you can't necessarily go from 0 to 100 tomorrow, but if you can start to make small steps, that's really going to go a long way for the impact that you're making, but also the impact that Lincoln as a whole makes to the environment. So that's kind of the big thing, right? Is if you look at this in a macro versus micro way, right? If we're looking at it right now in the bubble that we are in this weird time, you might think, okay, all it is delivery and takeout and all of that. Or you might look at it and say, hey, everything's changed and priorities are different. Like, we can put sustainable living and we can put the environment in the back burner because we have to figure out what we're doing right now. And while that's true, everything has changed and everything is different. The priority that is caring about our environment and sustainable living, it can't take the back seat. Because at the end of the day, if nobody else makes it, if we don't make it a priority, nobody else will. And so every little thing that we do on the individual level to keep that at the forefront, and make it easier on ourselves and our future selves, and as we continue to evolve past this pandemic, it's going to make things a lot better. And you can go to the next slide, Kyle, because there's a couple of resources on here from LES. I will tell you that I've been talking with them for a while now about, a lot of this, and they're a great resource, whether it be paperless billing. It costs $0 to enroll, but paperless billing as a whole. If you get bank statements or credit card statements, or if you have television or Wi-Fi, things like that, almost all places will allow you the opportunity to switch over to paperless billing. And if they don't, you should maybe shoot them a message that says, hey, can we do paperless billing? Which is a huge avenue. Just, it's, again, that small step that's going to make a difference. Along with that, from LES, you've got the renewable energy certificate writers that will it's another great deal that you can enact with. It's another program that a lot of people don't know about through LES. In addition to that, their energy savings tips YouTube channel, which is going to really break down a lot of different ways that you can save some energy and potentially save some money along the way, which is a great avenue to check out. But I will tell you that a simple Google search, or even just going on YouTube, there is so much content out there right now in regards to sustainable living, and really learning this, or at least starting on this process, is as simple as trying, which I think is a kind of a scary thing to admit, because one of the reasons I would have not dove into this over the last 25 years of my life would have been that I didn't know what to do. I don't remember being taught the right ways in grade school or in high school or wherever, or who's supposed to teach you those things. There really isn't that avenue or that pathway. And so LES, but there are also a ton of places that you can start on this. And then lastly, the Sustainable Living Festival, I think is a great opportunity this year, digital or virtual. All of the other years in person. Hopefully by next summer we are back together, face to face, and you're able to continue to learn new ways and adopt new aspects of your lifestyle. That's going to go a long way for us down the road.
All right, and with that, it looks like we're coming up to our question and answer portion of the program. First of all, thanks, Alec, for that great rundown. That was very well said, and I think a lot of the things that folks are talking about in the Lincoln Emergency Takeout Group, and a lot of that positive support that you've mentioned, is an important thing to remember, not just for takeout food and during a pandemic, but when we approach all things, I think it's really good to walk in a little more open-hearted and open-minded. So just to kind of get us kicked off with this question and answer portion now, first of all, as a reminder, you can submit a question by clicking on that Q&A button down at the bottom of your window. And as we get started here, the first question that I have for you, Alec, I've seen a lot of people doing creative things with takeout containers and some other food waste containers to try and make use of some of this extra stuff. As an example, I've seen people making planters out of ice cream containers and things like that. What are the most creative uses of some of this takeout waste that you've seen as you've kind of looked more into it?
Yeah, I think that's it's a great question. And I'm also open for, if anybody has an answer to that, you can throw that in the Q&A as well. And I think it's something that we could probably put back into the group, Kyle, actually, in that group chat with the 16,000 people, to see what individuals are doing. I know some restaurants, and this isn't necessarily here in Lincoln. I haven't seen this in Lincoln, but some restaurants are offering things like fully reusable stuff. So it's kind of like the growler, if you will. If you fill it up at Zipline, you can bring it back. Where, hey, if you come and you get the family meal, just bring your dish and we will make the food for you and put it in your dish. You heat it up at home, which I think is a really good idea, especially as it pertains to the family meals. There are some restaurants that have gone full down that pathway, which I think is something that maybe they wouldn't have had to have done pre-pandemic, and it was definitely an innovative way of thinking. But anything that you can do like that, where it also brings the people back, right? If you think about it from a marketing perspective, if I have an empty container and maybe I get $2 off if I bring it back and I refill it up, not only is it sustainable and it's reusable, but also you're getting customers back into your restaurant.
All right, it looks like we've got some questions dropping in here now as well, Alec. The first one on the top of the list here is, what is your favorite new restaurant discovery that came about because of the Facebook group?
Wow, that is a really tough question. I have tried way too many of the restaurants. Actually, my genuine answer might be freezing the Thai rolled ice cream. I had no idea that existed, and it's absolutely delightful. So that would be the first answer that I have, and I'm trying to think of the second in terms of a restaurant that we have gone out of our way to try. And I personally, I don't even remember the name of it. It's downtown, or it's off of O Street, and I think it's DP Dough. They've got calzones, and it was fantastic. And so those would be my two answers: calzones and Thai rolled ice cream. Shows what I've been doing for the pandemic.
Yeah, right.
But before we hop to the next question, it looks like there was an answer to your original question down there of what can you
Oh,
do?
yeah.
So I think Sammy Callahan said cutting up pieces of the packaging, painting it, putting it together, making art, taking photos. I think that's another great way that you can obviously repurpose that. But that's a really cool idea. And Sammy, I'm going to challenge you to do that and put it on the Facebook group, and we'll see if anybody challenges you back with something better.
I love that idea. That's great. Um, Looks like we've got somebody here wondering, how do you join the emergency takeout group? So I guess if you want to, this is maybe a great opportunity to talk about how to find you on Facebook and how to get involved.
Yeah, let me pull up the exact name of it. If you're on Facebook, and if you're not on Facebook, it would make it a little bit more difficult to engage. But as long as you can go to the web browser, you would be okay. And just search Lincoln Emergency Takeout and Delivery. It will pretty much do the trick for you. You'll be able to join it. It'll pause for a minute, and I'll accept you into the group. You could also just go directly to my Facebook page, which is Alec, ALEC, and then Mick Chesney, which I'm sure my name is somewhere on here. I don't think I need to spell it. But my page has shared a lot of that content as well. And so you'll be able to find it pretty easily.
All right, Alec. Well, it looks like going here. We've got one more question in here. Someone asking about things getting recycled or not in the community, even though you're putting them in recycling containers. I think that is, if you have thoughts to add to it, you're certainly welcome to. But I think that's probably a little bit outside of our purview. But I would say that in general, the best that we can do is the best that we can do. I think that when it comes to what happens after you've done all of the right things, it's important to, make sure that those groups, the parties that you're handing the ball off to, if you will, are accountable for that move. But I think in general, it's still important to focus on what you can control. Do you have any thoughts to add on that, Alec?
The first thing that I would say is, if that, and without going too far down that pathway, is if that is true, right? If that is a rumor, start with, holding people accountable. Start with your Lincoln Journal Star or your 1011, and see what they can find out about that. I totally understand the nervousness that comes with when you're doing something right. And as you said, Kyle, like, this is all that you can only control what you can control. And so any more information on that, I think it's a great opportunity to kind of dive into the local resources, and make sure that we are holding people accountable, and everything's happening the way it should be.
Yeah, for sure. And at the end of the day, too, it's easy to come up with excuses to not do a thing, right? And
Right.
so if your excuse is, well, they're probably not, they're probably just throwing it in the garbage can anyway, then it seems to me like maybe it wasn't a high priority to go get it taken care of. So I think eliminating those obstacles that we can kind of create for ourselves is always important. And I think, as Alex said, if there are real concerns about that, seeking that accountability, I think, is a great option. All right, let's take a look here and see what else we've got in the question and answer queue. We've got another tip for using some of our food containers and waste. Ashley is suggesting we're using that stuff for your own leftovers, which I think is also a great idea, with using those restaurant grade resealable containers. In fact, oftentimes, I think it's when we go to, I think the oven has them for, no, I don't remember now, but there's a place that we'll go to, and you'll get those nice pint-sized, clear, resealable, the food grade plastic containers, and those are great. We just continue to use them over and over in our house. All right, it looks like we might have lost Alec on here, but that's not a problem. We are just wrapping up anyway, so let's take a look here. I'll bring the screen back up. So if you guys would like to check out more offerings that we've got for this week's Sustainable Living Festival online, please don't forget to go check out les.com/fest. You're tuning in a little late for this little mini session we've got for today. We'll have a replay listed on there as well, so you can catch the very beginning and go from there. Special thanks to Alec McChesney for his help on this today. We really appreciate him jumping in and talking a little bit more about dealing with some of this food waste. Oh, there you are. Hey, Alec.
Hey.
I was just wrapping things up.
The internet. I tell you what.
Well, I'll let you do your own goodbyes at this point then.
Well, and the other thing that I was going to mention, just in kind of all of this, and it's something that a restaurant owner brought up to me last week, was, for some reason when you order delivery or takeout, you seem to order way more food. And then there's a lot of leftovers and you might not eat them. And so really, like, just trying to order the right amount of food, and not going overboard.
Oh no, I think he's frozen. We'll give him one more moment here to get back. All right, I think we're gonna have to put a wrap on Alec. Sorry, Alec. But I think to complete that point, that's a really important thing. And then the thing that I keep kind of reminding myself of when, especially when ordering food, when ordering takeout food, is if I'm still hungry, if I'm eating at home, I'm surrounded by food still. So it's all right to order just what you want, get those special treats, get those special things, but not feel like you need to fill the pantry with leftovers because there's plenty of food already. So, all right, like we said before, if you'd like to see more from the Sustainable Living Festival this year, please go to les.com/fest or education.les.com. And when this webinar is concluded, you'll be prompted with a brief survey of it to let us know how we did. Let us know that how much you were bothered by our internet connection issues. If you've got the time, we'd really appreciate you filling that out. So otherwise, thank you very much and have a great rest of your afternoon. Good thing.